The Falcons have a 30-0 loss on their schedule, and somehow, some way, their loss on Sunday feels worse. Wow. Meanwhile, on Saturday, Georgia Tech, massive winners over Syracuse. We're breaking down that game and why Tech might be the best team in the state of Georgia. Also, how does Brian Kelly's firing at LSU affect this team and what it looks like going forward for head coach Brent Key? In our Lanyap segment for the day, we're breaking down the Hawks and why you guys shouldn't be panicking at home that they're 1-2 to start the season. Calm the hell down. It's the Reggie Chatman Show, and it starts right now. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Reggie Chatman Show. I am your host, Reggie Chatman, a sports anchor and reporter based here in Atlanta, Georgia, that covers each and every team in and around the area. That includes both college football, the NBA, baseball, and of course the NFL. The NFL's king, and that's what we're leading with today. The Falcons, man. Unreal. A 34-10 loss to the Miami Dolphins at home on Sunday in a way that was, it's not just a loss. It was like really, really disappointing. We were on track to seeing the Falcons lose their worst possible game inside of that stadium until that late touchdown by Tyler Algier. Up until that point, it was 34-3. A 31-point loss at home would have been the worst margin of victory, worst margin of loss inside that stadium since it opened. And boy, would that have been bad to see. And so the Falcons now 3-4 on the year. We're going to be breaking down this game and just talking about some of the things that I noticed, some of the things that I saw, some of the things that I think that matter. And of course, naturally, we have to lead with the offense. And, you know, we had Kirk Cousins getting the start in this one. The offense did not look good with Kirk Cousins, which is disappointing because when you look at this Falcons team, Michael Penix Jr. getting the start for the first whatever amount of weeks of the season, getting the start there. He is the guy. Gets hurt in the last game, gets rolled up on in the game against the 49ers. Bone bruise in his left knee. Not obviously what you want to see out of your quarterback. And I thought, I'll be honest, earlier in the week when he was talking with us, the media, I was there for his press conference earlier in the week heading into the game. I felt pretty confident that he was going to play. The NFL, man, it's the NFL. These guys are all playing a little bit injured. It's a bone bruise in his left knee, but I just felt like, based on what he was saying, the confidence that he had, the way the team was speaking about him, that he had a potential to play. Now, mind you, I was pretty, surprised that later in the week, once he actually got on the field, by Thursday, he was still limited at practice. That was surprising to me. And then, of course, questionable, giving that questionable tag heading into the weekend. And then when the report came down that Adam Schefter said that Kirk Cousins would get the start, I was like, okay, I guess Kirk Cousins is back. And I think that's kind of why you have a backup like Kirk Cousins, right? You paid him all this money, right? Michael Penix is not at 100%. You're a young quarterback with a knee issue. You want to make sure that he stays happy and healthy throughout the course of this season and the course of his career. He is your future. He is your guy. It's not like you had me out there playing quarterback as your backup quarterback. You have a guy that started most of the games last season, has played a lot of snaps, and now is supposedly healthy. Versus last year when he was coming off the Achilles injury and then, of course, got injured halfway through the year and didn't tell anybody. And they ended up losing all those games, won that losing streak before Michael Penix Jr. eventually took over this team and this franchise. And so I think if you have a Kirk Cousins on your team and you're paying all this money to be your backup, you're paying him starting money to be your backup, you think, hey, go in there and just make some plays, right? You're going up against a Dolphins team that had just one win all season. You're going up against a Dolphins team that had the worst rush defense in the NFL. And the Falcons offense couldn't muster up more than 10 points on the day. Offensively, it was a disaster, right? And I think that the play-by-play chart is what really kind of like blew my mind. As I'm sitting there in the press box watching these two teams play, they go punt, three and out. Field goal on a 9-play, then 3 and out, end of half. Punt on a 3 and out. They fumble, Bijan Robinson does. Then they get turned over on downs the next two possessions before that touchdown on that 11-play, 65-yard drive to save what could have been the worst loss in the history of that building. You lose by a final 34-10. Kirk Cousins just didn't look comfortable, right? Didn't look comfortable, got sacked. Got sacked once, went 21 of 31 for just 173 yards, passer rating or quarterback rating of 35.5, and I'll tell you, it just looked bad. He didn't look comfortable. You kept seeing him hit himself in the head when maybe they're running option routes or choice routes, and him throwing to the wrong guy or throwing to the wrong place, or maybe having a miscommunication on what the route was supposed to be. He's missing throws when guys are open. That was a disaster from your quarterback. And to make matters even worse, that was the plan for the Dolphins, this defense that had struggled so much this year. They had struggled so much stopping the run. An opportunity for the Falcons to bounce back against a team that can't stop the run. You've got one of the best running backs in the entire NFL. And Bijan finished with 9 carries for 25 total yards. The Falcons finished with 45 total yards on the day. They got outgained on the ground 141-45. This is the second straight week where the team that the Falcons were playing looked like the Falcons did versus the Buffalo Bills, where you have a superstar running back and you're running the ball well and you're scoring with the running backs moving down the field, pushing the ball. So post-game, Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel actually said their whole plan was to sell out on the run, stop the run, and make this Falcons team beat you throwing the football. They said it didn't matter who it was at QB. This was going to be the plan if Michael Penix Jr. was the starter also, but it was Kirk Cousins. And Kirk Cousins, who clearly has not played in a while, he got a little bit of action earlier this year in that 30-0 loss to the Panthers, did not look comfortable and did not look good. The offense was terrible. They got outgained 338-213. Bijan Robinson had those 25 rush yards, lost a fumble inside the Miami 20 in the third quarter. And the roller coaster continues. For this team that just a couple of weeks ago, at home, you make a crazy big statement by beating the Buffalo Bills at home, in a place where you normally average 16 more points per game. At home, you get the job done against the Buffalo Bills on national TV in front of everybody and showcasing what kind of firepower this offense has. After that game, I think they're ranked number 1 in the NFL in scoring, or at least in offense. And their defense was top 3. And that was including at the time a 30-0 loss to the Panthers. Now 2 weeks later, here you go. You lose in a close game. If you had just made a couple of plays here and there against the 49ers out on the road, you could have probably come away with that one. Obviously not a good loss. That one didn't feel good. This one feels way worse. 34-10. The worst loss of the year, especially based on the situation. And you look ahead of the schedule, you're in a situation where this was kind of a must-win, or at least as much as a must-win as a game in October could be, because it gets really difficult the next couple of weeks. You go on the road to the Patriots. You already have struggled on the road this season. You don't know if Michael Penix Jr. is going to be back. We mentioned injuries. Drake London was out for this game, which clearly made a major difference, and you realize just how big those two guys are to this offense. So you go on the road to the Patriots this next week, a team that, despite getting sacked 5 times by Myles Garrett, the Patriots end up blowing out that team. And to make matters even worse, and this is how you kind of connect things in the NFL, at least this is how I kind of connect things, right? They're playing against the Browns. The Browns lost by a good portion of the Patriots. The Browns held the Dolphins to just 3 points a week ago. And here they come on the road, their highest scoring performance of the year on the road inside a Mercedes-Benz Stadium. They scored 34 points to get a massive win, and just their second of the year. Let's talk some defense, because that was kind of the biggest deal here to maybe what some of the problems were. I did not realize just how important Divine Diablo was to this defense. And you could see it in the middle of that game against the 49ers. He comes off the field after that first possession or that second possession or whenever he went out of that game with that fractured forearm. He's officially been placed on the IR, which means he's going to be out for a while. And Christian McCaffrey dialed back the clock and looked like he was at Stanford, or looked like he was with the Panthers. He looked incredible, had his best rushing performance in years, and he was the one who looked like Bijan Robinson in that game. Well, here's another opportunity for this defense to come through. And just like that, guys were turning back the clock and playing crazy again. There's a whole lot of run for the Dolphins in this one. Like I said, they outgained him 141-45 on the ground. There's a whole bunch of Devon Achane as well as Ali Gordon. Those two guys, they gave him a lot of carries. Them boys was toting that rock. What did they finish with? Achane had 18 carries. Ali Gordon had 10. Jalen Wright had 9. They finished 37 carries on the ground, 141 yards. Surprising to see that none of them scored on the ground. But I knew they got in the end zone because two of those guys both caught touchdowns from their quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa, that rolled the clock back as well. Just like Christian McCaffrey. Tua rolled it back to his time back at Alabama. Or maybe the last couple of years before this little stretch here we struggled. Maybe before the concussions and things. He went 20 of 26, threw for 205, and had 4 touchdowns on a career day. And to make matters even worse, he woke up with his eyes swollen shut. They didn't know if he was going to play in this game. He does. He balls out. 20 of 26, 205 yards, 4 touchdowns. Got sacked once. We even saw Zach Wilson in the game, which is when I knew, all right, this is they're just rubbing it in now. I mean, not great. Not great. So now what? This Falcons team now sits at 3-4. Like I said, they head on the road to go face off against the Patriots. Then they head overseas to Germany as they face off against a Colts team that has been maybe the best team in the NFL this year. They've been unbelievable. Then you have some NFC South games. Panthers and Saints. Panthers at home. A Panthers team who, by the way, just got blown out by the Bills. The same team that you beat, even though you lost to them 30-0. It just shows you, man, the NFL, the parity is insane. You just never know. You just never know. And I think, honestly, that's why there is some feeling, and this is how I feel. I love Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I think it's the best professional stadium in all of sports. I think it's awesome. The setup, the location, the vibe, how it looks in there. The way it's set up, they treat us very well in the media. Ice cream machine is awesome. The food is good. They let us take leftovers. That's not really the point here. But the environment inside the Benz doesn't really blow me away. And they're facing off against the Dolphins. You know, you're back at home facing off against the Dolphins. And I think that a lot of people are like, this is a must. We'll roll over these guys. We'll get a win. There's really no reason to go to this game. I'm not really trying to go see the Dolphins XYZ. And what the people saw when they got there was anything but that. And so now you're gone for the next 2 weeks before you get to come back home on the 16th of November to face off against the Panthers. You better hope you win that one. There's a good opportunity you get to that game having lost to the Patriots and the Colts and have the Panthers staring at you coming at home, a team that beat you 30-0 earlier in the year. I don't see that happening again, especially at home. But also there's just so many questions about what comes next. The health of certain guys, how healthy is Michael Penix Jr.? How healthy is Drake London? Can Zach Harrison get back to his health? You're missing your starting safety. You're missing Jalen Walker. Those rookies that have been so good, at least so good to start the year, injured. So what does it look like going forward? Definitely something we'll have to see. Overall, though, the roller coaster season continues for this Falcons team, and unfortunately, it's starting to look like if things don't start getting a little bit better, at least you guys show some fight. The future of Raheem Morris could definitely be in question. Right? I don't think that Arthur Blank is going to end up, firing when this is obviously early. I don't think he'll end up firing him mid-season. He hasn't shown that he wanted to do that. There was definitely opportunities to do that with Arthur Smith some years ago. I think he likes Raheem a whole lot just as a guy, as a person. But something's going to have to change. There's going to be question marks about his job security. There's going to be question marks about Zach Robinson, his job security. and what this team might look like going forward. But we'll get these questions answered over the course of the next couple of weeks. Because in classic Falcons fashion, there's a good chance they mess around and get a big win over the Patriots or the Colts to get their season rack back on the line. That's just kind of what this all has been like. They clearly have the ability to do so. That win over the Bills was the best win on the schedule. The Vikings win felt great at the time. Turns out J.J. McCarthy's just not that good. And then the Commanders win felt good at the time, but also you weren't facing off against Jaden Daniels. That Bills win was huge. If you can get a win over the Patriots or the Colts, two teams I think have become very good teams, you have an opportunity to make a statement. And also with those NFC South games coming up, you also have a chance to kind of cut your way back into the NFC South race. So the season's clearly not over. Obviously very disappointing. Terrible, terrible loss, but an opportunity to move forward over the next couple weeks. All right, speaking of the best team in the city of Atlanta, Georgia Tech. Massive winners over Syracuse on Saturday. It was homecoming, 41-16. The weather was incredible. I fell off my skateboard. It's a quick little story time for you. So I live down the street from the stadium, so I decided I'm going to go watch the first half before I have to go to work and shoot and edit out the highlights and put together my show on 11 Live. If you guys have never seen me, that's the channel that I'm on. Skateboard down the street, I ended up hitting a massive break between the two streets, fall off my skateboard, tear up my thumb. So I want to give a huge shout out to the people over there at Georgia Tech. The trainers on the field ended up helping me out, giving me a Band-Aid, making sure that it was disinfected, and I went on with my day. And for that reason, they won the game. Just the vibes were so high. First sellout in a long time versus an ACC foe at home on homecoming. You're undefeated into that game, coming in 7-0. Incredible vibes. The weather was great. And you're facing a Syracuse team that missing their starting quarterback and is, frisky. They got a win over Clemson earlier this year, just like you did. Of course, the quarterback is different now. But that was exactly the win that Georgia Tech needed. A dominant performance over a team that you have to beat at home. Syracuse has not been very good since Ricky Collins took over. I'm a really big fan of Fran Brown as a coach. I think he's a good dude. I think he treats those players well. He makes them work hard at Syracuse. I feel like that's kind of a tough ass to try and win over there. And he's doing, I think, a pretty good job. This would be the exact game that he would kind of fire you up and try and get guys ready to go. But first quarter, it was tied after the first quarter, tied at 3. Another slow start for Georgia Tech. They have had that issue before. They have had turnovers early in games, which is the whole reason that post-game head coach Brent Key did not say it was it was a complete performance from start to finish. Obviously, you're tied at 3 with Syracuse. But funny enough, it never felt like Syracuse had a beat on Georgia Tech. And I think that's so important. This team is starting to separate. They're starting to get better. They're starting and continuing to grow as a team. You have to win games like this and do it in dominating fashion. 41-16 at home in a game where it never felt close, even if it was tied at 3 after the first quarter. You hold them to that field goal after that turnover to start the game. You get 3 points out of it, but it felt like at any point Georgia Tech is going to move the football, get down the field, and win this game. It's the same kind of feeling that I had when I was on the field for the Virginia Tech game, where you can see a gap between the teams that are not as good and the team that's ranked in the top 10 in the country in Georgia Tech. And years past, especially based on Brent Key's record, those unranked teams would cause him problems for whatever reason. Very good against ranked ACC teams, struggled versus the unranked ACC teams. And I think the thing that has really changed is that Brent Key, obviously, he's preaching toughness and all those things. But I think what's really been the thing that has changed over the course of this season is the small things, the little details, the things that they're doing correct. They're not beating themselves. Maybe once. They'll start again and beat themselves. But it's not like Haynes King is throwing picks or they're fumbling the ball a whole lot. They take care of the football. They play soundly. Not a lot of penalties. They take advantage of other teams' mistakes. Even when they make mistakes, their defense has been shown to be good enough, especially against these teams that are not as good as theirs, to get stops. And it all helps when you got Haynes King on your roster. 25 of 31, 304 yards passing. Ran 12 times for 91 yards. Finished with 5 total touchdowns. Georgia Tech, 543 yards of offense, the most in an ACC conference game in 2 years. And to put into perspective, the first half, Syracuse finished with just 118 total yards in the first half. Tech, 28-17 on first downs. What a complete performance. Haynes King has been unbelievable. And I think one of the coolest stats is everybody knows Haynes King for his legs, his ability to run the football, that dog mentality, the guy that you want to get behind. People forget that he can pass the ball. Like I mentioned, he was 25 of 31. That's a completion percentage of over 80%. And it's the highest completion percentage in Georgia Tech history in a game for a passer that is thrown for 30 or more times. Haynes King is doing everything that you need out of a player like him. He is this team. It makes you wonder what it would have looked like last year if he was healthy for the entire year. This is what we're getting from him. He is the guy that people think Diego Pavia is. Right? I think if there's any year for a Georgia Tech player to have the opportunity to be invited to New York for the Heisman Trophy, this is the year. Haynes King encompasses everything that you need from a starting quarterback for your team. I don't think there's anybody, and I compare him to Diego Pavia because it's similar, but I don't think there's anybody that encompasses what this team is or what his team is around him more than Haynes King. Tough, works hard, reckless abandon, does winning things, makes winning plays, cares about the team. And I'll tell you, Haynes King has every reason to feel a little bit different about himself, get a little bit bucked up and feeling good. He really does. I'm walking around on campus. You got his face all over the place. Of course, he's got the name King, so, I mean, they're playing this up, right? But in the end, always plays it down. It would be cool to be in the mix. Individual awards are cool, but I'm all about winning. He says, I want to win a national championship. How legitimate could that be? Well, I don't know if they'll win a national championship. I don't know if they can win game over game against top-level, high competition. But I think this team's a lot better than people are trying to give them credit for. 8-0 at this point. Their schedule lends them to be able to finish undefeated heading to that Georgia game at the end of the year, a game that will not matter towards their conference record. So if they go into that game undefeated, they're definitely going to the ACC title game, which would be that next week out in Charlotte, which would be super cool to go to. Very excited about that. Hypothetically, I should be able to cover that. I'm hoping I get to cover that. And I think, honestly, there's a chance they beat Georgia. You know? Would that be so far out of the possibility? It's not like this team is a whole lot different than last year. They're better than last year. Georgia Tech is. You're playing inside the Benz. I guess it's a neutral site. I wish they had stayed inside of Bobby Dodd Stadium, but that's neither here nor there. It's the new age of college football. They're giving them a whole lot of money to play over there. You need money to be able to build the facilities and get the players and build a successful program. But you kind of get my point. I think they'll get to the first round of the college football playoff. I think there's an opportunity, even if they lose to Georgia, to go to the ACC title game. I think even if they lose that game, depending on how it looks, if they get blown out by Georgia, if they get blown out by, I don't know, Miami or Virginia in the ACC title game, they won't get in. But if it's close, they'll get in. And I think there's an opportunity that they host a college football playoff game at Bobby Dodd Stadium, which would be absolutely electric. I love that stadium. I really, really do. So there is that opportunity as well. I think they mess around and will win a first-round playoff game. I don't really care who they play. At home, they have an opportunity to do something really special this year. Even if they're not at home, they're a team that's built because they're so unique offensively and they play with so much toughness. that I think they have an opportunity to do something special if they can get to the college football playoff. And if they get the college football playoff, that means the wait could be even longer for people trying to hire Brent Key out of that job. I actually looked at the odds for the next head coach at LSU. Obviously, as you know, I went to LSU. And naturally, they're going to be looking around to see which are some of the head coaches that are available. Of course, you hear some of the big names for them. Dan Lanning, Lane Kiffin. You know, I've seen John Gruden, John Summerall over there from Tulane. You go pretty far down the list before you get to Brent Key, but he's on the list. And for good reason. I think he encompasses a lot of what college teams are looking for. A coach that cares a lot, cares about his program, cares about his players, builds a sense of toughness, and makes sure that, you know, regardless of what's going on, this team feels like they can be in a game. I don't see it happening. I don't think that even with all these incredible jobs opening, LSU's open, Florida's open, Penn State is open, Oklahoma State's open. There's a lot of schools that are open right now. I have a hard time believing that Brent Key will leave Georgia Tech. He's making good money. And he's playing and he's coaching for his alma mater. He connects with these kids. And maybe, I mean, the schools like LSU are ones that you, I'm a little biased, but or that you leave your program for and go to. But he's from Georgia Tech. He cares a lot about Georgia Tech. His family's all there. He's been part of the program. He's been in the SEC and coached in the SEC before under Nick Saban. If I can build a major championship level program in the ACC and have an opportunity to run the conference, and you're at Georgia Tech at your alma mater, and you have to go up against the ACC schedule every week, I don't see a reason for leaving. I think the new age of college football affords that a lot of teams can be really, really successful. Can they win at the highest level? I'm not sure. And I'd have to say I don't think so. But every year, every game, feeling like you have an opportunity to win to win every single week and have a potential trip to the college football playoff every year as you try to run through the ACC or be successful through the ACC. It's a pretty good gig, and he's at home. So I don't think he might get reached out to, maybe. But I don't see Brent Key leaving for LSU or any of the teams that are currently available. And if he's not leaving for LSU or Florida or Penn State, what are the other jobs that would potentially be open that would be even more interesting than those? Ohio State, I guess. He's got no connection. Alabama, Kalen DeBoer's not leaving. There's only like this many teams in the upper echelon of squads and schools and jobs that you leave your job for. And if he doesn't do it for LSU, and that's, of course, if he's offered. And I'm not saying he is being offered. I'm not even saying that I've even heard he's going to be offered. I think that Brent Key is going to be sticking right here at Georgia Tech. He's going to be here for a long time. He wants to become a legend here. You know, get a statue, get his name somewhere, win at the highest level. I think he has an opportunity to do a lot here at Georgia Tech. Now, before we go, I want to make sure we mention our Lanyap segment. Hawks 1-2 to start the year. Not great. Their one win was a come-from-behind, impressive win. Come-from-behind over the Orlando Magic. An impressive win to come back in that game. The thing I do worry about, though, is that people are at home freaking out, and I think it's way too early to freak out. So let me be the guy that tells you, calm the hell down. The Hawks are going to be fine. Now, I don't love the fact that Zachary Shea is already hurt. He legitimately turned his ankle. I don't love the fact that Jalen Johnson is already injured as well. Kristaps Porzingis is sick, so it's not really an injury. You already expected that Kristaps wasn't going to play all the games this season just because of his injury history. He did get sick. He was legitimately sick and is legitimately sick, so we wonder when he'll be back. But I think this Hawks team has enough talent and it was built the correct way that on paper they should be good this year. I think Asa Newell has done a good job bringing some energy off the bench in his limited action with some of the guys missing. Onyeka Okongwu looks like he's taken another step. He's shooting the ball at least a little bit better from three. Mo Gay has really taken another step as well with his athleticism and defense, being able to rebound. Trey hasn't gone absolutely crazy yet. You're going to get a classic Trey Young performance coming soon, especially as these games get bigger and better. This team is just trying to figure things out. It's a new roster with new players. with Nikhil Alexander-Walker in the fold. I think Dyson Daniels is going to figure it out once again. Trae Young is going to get bigger and better. I think they really need to see Luke Kennard, a guy that they got over the offseason, shoot the ball better, because I think that is really the key to unlocking all this. This team has not shot super well from three to start the year. They have not. So, all those things being said, the Hawks are going to be fine. Calm down. Everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be fine. They face off against the Chicago Bulls a little bit later tonight. And we'll be talking about it on tomorrow's episode of the Reggie Chatman Show. So make sure you guys hit that like button. Make sure you guys subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to get bigger and better at this every single day I do this show. Thank you guys so much for supporting so early here in my time on this channel. Make sure you guys hit that notification bell to know when the next episodes are coming. So much to talk about as we have reached the coming up near the end of October. Crossover season. Basketball, baseball, football, NHL, all of it going on at the same time, all of it being really important at this time of year. And I'm excited to talk about it with you all as well. Shout out to Yoshinobu Yamamoto for what was an incredible pitching performance the other night in Game 2 of the World Series. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe button. Peace.